this just comes back to some of the kind of research that we've been doing, and what I'm actually going to do is actually show you a clip from the BBC News. You're going to say, well, why show a clip from the BBC News? I'm actually going to show this clip because it's about work that came from Newcastle, and I said to my wife, because I couldn't bear to watch it, I said to my wife, well, what was it like when it came on the telly? She said, it was the first time I ever really understood what you did. So,
Good evening and welcome to the BBC's News at 6. British scientists have developed a pioneering technique that promises new hope to families that live in the shadow of a range of inherited diseases. A team at Newcastle University have shown it's possible to create a human embryo using genetic material from 3 people, the mother, the father and another woman. Crucially, the child will have all the characteristics of the parents, but without the DNA that carries the inherited disease. Here's our medical correspondent, Fergus Walsh.
A newly fertilised human egg being manipulated in a lab, a microscopic image that has become familiar, but you are looking at something radically different, a new frontier in genetics. Because these scientists in Newcastle believe they can actually fix a genetic fault which has caused illness, death and heartache for families down the generations. Like for Edward and his mother. He's severely disabled with a host of health problems, the result of a DNA fault passed on by his mum Sharon. The same genetic illness meant she endured the death of her 6 other children, all within days of birth.
You can't imagine it happened once, but happened 3, 4, 5, 6 times. And then to be told, obviously my son's got something. It's a disease that causes Edward to have chronic pain in his muscles, which makes him scream throughout the night. He doesn't walk now, and he needs full-time looking after.
The disease is found in these structures, mitochondria. They're the power packs for each cell and have their own DNA. They're passed on through the woman's egg. This research used newly fertilised eggs donated after IVF. The nuclei of the sperm and egg contain all the crucial genes from both parents. These were removed, leaving behind the mother's mitochondria. The nuclei were transferred to another woman's egg, carrying its own mitochondria. The embryo had the parent's genes plus a tiny bit of DNA from a second woman.
all we're doing is changing over the power supply. All the key information that makes a person or a baby is going to be there. And all we've done is correct this problem with the power supply.
None of the 80 embryos they produced was implanted in a woman, but the Newcastle team think they'll be ready to treat couples in about 3 years. But critics say that must never happen.
Parents are seeking to have a child of their own, but what might eventually happen is that they will have to share this child with a third person. In other words, the person providing the egg.
I do it.
Sharon knows this research comes too late for her, and it would take a ruling from the Health Secretary before the treatment could be used to help around 1,000 other women with the same condition to have a healthy child.
And Fergus joins me now. So what next, Fergus? When will the first family benefit?
Well, George, this research in the journal Nature shows that British scientists are once again at the cutting edge of genetic research. Now, if they can demonstrate through animal trials and further lab research that this looks like it's safe, I think it's very likely that this will eventually be allowed. Let's deal with this issue of DNA from 3 different adults. The donor DNA from the second woman will be 37 genes found only in the mitochondria. Crucially, they won't pass on any human attributes. Contrast that with 23,000 from the parents. Now, critics will worry about the child's sense of identity, having this second, albeit small, maternal DNA source. But having met Sharon and her son Edward you saw in that report, I know that for the parents who have these cruel, devastating, often fatal conditions, that they would see this as a dream come true, to be able to have a healthy child and stop this disease once and for all being passed down the generations, but expect a vigorous debate before this is ever allowed to be used to help couples conceive.
All right, Fergus, thank you very much.
Right, so I hope that really explained in that 4-minute clip, one, that we do think this is a breakthrough in mitochondrial research, and so do other people, and also that how important it is that this sort of research goes ahead. And two of the people that are actually in that video working in the lab who did some of this research are actually in the audience here tonight, just highlighting the kind of commitment they have to try and help us really try and get rid of some of these mitochondrial diseases, because if we can do this sort of technique of transferring, then we will be able to take, as the head of the muscular dystrophy campaign said, take this disease out at the knees. And I think that's one of the things that we want to do. So what do we do now? Well, if you think about this, what we're proposing is basically a couple has IVF, we do this manipulation, and we would be able to stop the transmission of certain mitochondrial diseases. You might then ask, well, why can't we do this now? Well, we can't do it now because we're not sure of the safety. We don't know what risks we'd be giving people by doing this. And I think that's a very important thing that we need to test. We need to look at how safe this is. And these are studies that are going on in the laboratory at the moment. We need to be able to say whether or not the child that's born is likely to have mitochondrial disease, but also doesn't develop other diseases just due to the technique. The other thing that we will need to do when we've done that is we will need to change the law. And at the moment, we're allowed very much to do this research. We're allowed to continue with research, and I'm just going to stress a little bit more about that. But at the present moment, even if we showed this was as safe as IVF, we wouldn't be allowed to do it. Because the law says if we manipulate human eggs or early embryos, then we cannot implant those back into a woman. It's something that I hope will be looked at very favourably, but one of the things that we will need to do is we might need to call upon help from individuals like yourselves to try and help change the law if you agree this is a good thing to do. And I think one of the things that we need to do is we need to make people aware of why this sort of research is important. So is there anything else that you can do? Well, one of the reasons we've been able to do this research in the first place is because women have donated eggs for research. And that sounds like an unbelievably kind thing to do, and it is. I think one of the things that we're very keen on to take this work forward, and much of the work that we've done in the past, which were really done with eggs, which were donated during the IVF procedure, but were abnormal eggs, what we're looking for is now donations of normal eggs. And that's certainly something, if anybody feels that they would be prepared to donate normal eggs or donate eggs for research, then please do have a talk to me. I know it's a big thing, but really this sort of research can't move forward unless we can determine whether or not this is safe. And it's not about being safe in a mouse model or something else. It's got to be safe in humans before it will ever be allowed. But am I optimistic? Using Dr. McFarlane's phrase, am I optimistic about the future? Well, I think I am optimistic about the future. I do believe the work that we're doing in Newcastle and other groups around the world are doing are actually trying to fundamentally change the course of mitochondrial disease. And I appreciate from many of you, you're going to be saying, well, look, that's too late for me. And of course it is too late for you. But there are other advances where we're looking at new treatments or new ways to alter these genes, for example, which may be of benefit to you. And that's why, whilst I'm not so sure that we're going to beat Germany 4-0, I'm pretty sure that in 4 years' time there will be significant advances in the way in which we treat patients with mitochondrial diseases. Thank you very much.